How's it going, guys? It's Mr. Lone Wolf, and today I finally got the review for the Chevrolet CK 1500. So I'm giving it a little blast the last few days, and yeah, we'll see how it stacks up against the rest of the Scouts. So first thing is the engine. Gonna go for the bottom one. It's got the most power to it. I think it's A minus or something on the power. It's like 3 notches from the top. As far as Scouts go, that's not too bad, to be honest. For most of them anyway. There's a few exceptions. The gearbox, I've gone for the freeway one. I don't really like the SnowRunner gearbox, if I'm honest. The suspension actually raises it quite a lot, really. It's definitely a pretty handy one to get the suspension. And then as for tyres, you've got all sorts of different options. They've actually got like 3 tyre size options, which is pretty nice once you get down to these. And I'm going to stick with the chained. I quite like the chain, to be honest, plus it just keeps them even throughout. I use chained on most things. As for the winch, I've got the Advanced Scout. And then for the roof racks, the one in the back, in the pickup bed, is fine, but the 2 roof racks I find, like the little one's not as bad, so there is that, but yeah, it just does the roof rack bug thing where it slows your truck down too much. I've got unlockable diff, or engageable, whatever it is. And then as for the snorkels, I think that one is like slightly taller than the first one, so that's the one I'm going for, but obviously we'll see how it is later in water. As for the add-ons, I'm going to remove them pipes off the side just for the sakes of this review, and then the other one was just a sun visor. As for rear bumpers, there's not too many where you get to change the rear bumpers, but the reason I'm going for that one in the end, if you sort of look underneath the truck, it sits the higher. I doubt it makes very much difference, to be honest, but just to be safe, that's what I went for. Then all the different add-ons, usual things. The horns on the bonnet, I don't normally get them, but got some money at the minute, so I will. Yeah, side parking lights, just all the usual bits and bobs. I'm going for just the pure fog lights, not the beacons. And then as for the bumpers, I'm sort of lining it up with those boxes in the background. Like that one's not too bad. That does go up a bit. There's that one as well, which I quite like the look of. I think that's the one I leave on. That one still sits pretty high as well. Not too keen on that one. But yeah, on the whole, most of them are pretty decent. I just like the look of that one that has the bars going underneath. But one of the bumpers, that one, not that one, that one, has 2 fog lights as well. But to be honest, with the roof fog lights, it's pretty bright anyway. And then rims, there's only 2 options. I think I ended up leaving, yeah, the ones that got like bit more detail in the spokes. And then as for the colours, it's got a custom paint job, so that's what it looks like. It's kind of, yeah, pretty cool. Sort of like the paintwork stripping off, I suppose. And then, yeah, all the different usual colours. Looks pretty nice in black. Grey I'm not that bothered about. The white was pretty nice though. And then the colours, I've got blue and white. That one, like, I don't know, a creamy colour and black. Red and white, that looks pretty cool. And that one, to be honest, they're not all horrible, like, especially with the slightly old school truck, they sort of, most of them suit it pretty well, I think. Same with that one, but I'm going to stick with the custom paint job since not too many trucks have got them. And yeah, having a look around, I really do like the look of it, to be honest. It reminds me of like the black pickup truck he has in Back to the Future, or whichever one it was. Yeah, looking inside, sort of old school, not too bad though. Got a rear view mirror. As for the wing mirror, I can sort of see stuff, but it's quite small and it sits a bit low. Looking out the back there, I can see the garage window, so that's all good. And same with that mirror really. Again, I can see out of it, but I can't really see behind me too much. It's more points to the floor. As for the horn though, like, pretty standard, but that'll do. It's not a horrible one. I like how all the little when all the gauges turned on, all them little white sort of dials filled up depending what it is and that. Yeah, there's no rev counter, so I couldn't test that with the revs. Got to remember to put it in gear, that helps. Setting off though, best thing with the any Scouts is just keep tapping L1 because they're pretty bad at climbing up the gears really. You sit in first gear going pretty slow at it, you just tap L1, it jumps to like 4th or 5th anyway. As for the trailers, pretty normal. I suppose there's that radar trailer now, but yeah, there's just the single slot cargo, the double one, and then the Scout fuel trailer. It's not that bad for tipping. I actually like the power of this thing. It's not too bad. It's not obviously the most powerful or anything, but yeah, I can live with it. This engine does drink, not loads, but quite a bit for a Scout, really. I mean, going along there, I stayed in auto as well. That's one thing I don't really like about the Scouts in general. The high range gear is pretty slow. And cutting across here, I put it into low range. Obviously, I do think the revs are capped fairly harshly on this when you put it in the low range gear. And I tend to find that just putting it back in auto is like usually at least as quick, if not quicker. And again, I could use, if I was going to do some serious off-roading and that, I would probably take the, well maybe, I don't know actually, I was going to say the SnowRunner gearbox. Managed to get through there, which obviously the loaf and stuff did, but what was it? I think the Hummer couldn't get through there. And what the Yar 87, I don't think that could get through there either. So it's just one of them, just a little example of like, yeah, if you're weaving through a sort of pretty dense forest, then yeah, it's pretty nimble, pretty narrow. Splattered into a tree. To be honest though, I knew it wasn't going to knock the tree over, but I only took 9 damage off it, which is pretty nice. And as for going through here, I find this with most Scouts though, like, especially mud and that, they don't really like it at all. But they are very good for like either flying down roads or awkward bits or slow windy paths, all that sort of stuff. But obviously if I had to just cut through here, and it didn't really matter if I had a Scout or a truck, I would bring a truck. And that's one thing I do find with this, where it seems fairly heavily punished, and I don't think it's a heavy truck, so, or a Scout, whatever, so I don't think it should be doing this as much as it is, but its wheels cut into the mud a lot, like, and now it's basically sitting, you know, still in the mud, and it's not clawing its way on top of it and then starting to accelerate. Like now I'm tapping L1 trying to go up the gears, but it just still wants to cut big channels out of the mud. And in most, if not all reviews I can remember, by now I'm usually, even if it's a fairly heavy vehicle, I've kind of made my way back out of the mud and I'm kind of skimming along the top of it again, whereas this just really wasn't really doing that. And I reckon that's like an artificial, I'd say balance, but restriction is probably a better word. Like, I think that's been done purposely just to sort of hold it back a bit. Which I understand that it's the first vehicle you get in the game, but obviously it's a stock version back then. But once you've got it fully upgraded, yeah, it'd be nice if it did go a little bit faster in situations like that. As for the suspension though, you take the odd one here and there, but it's nothing to write home about. I would say the suspension, like, I've certainly never had it as a problem to where I've run out, unless I was, you know, smashing into barriers and all sorts of stuff, or crashing around in the ice. But other than that, it was all good. That anti-terrorist barricade, all things considered, I didn't really nail the truck or anything. I'm not going to leave too much of this in. Obviously I'm going to go and do the hill test in a second, but I just wanted to show you that it's very slow through here. I stick winches if I ever have to cut through here in a Scout. I haven't done it for a while just because, yeah, if I already know I'm heading this way, I just wouldn't bring a Scout really. I just wanted to leave this bit, and it's basically up that hill where, after I like got through that gap with a lamp post or telegraph pole or whatever, I mean, I think I just got a bit unlucky on the bounce. I wouldn't say it's particularly prone to rolling, but I got unlucky on the bounce, landed on my side. The nice thing is though, because the wheels kind of sit slightly in compared to like the full width of the chassis, it sort of sat like it slightly leans towards its wheels. So I put it in high gear, and kind of the mechanics of the game really is when you put it in high gear, it churns the mud and you see it like, you know, wheels spinning and flicking mud up. But one thing that does do is dig into the mud, and it's like when you're on your side you can quite often use it, just sit there flooring it, and you'll basically just dig channels with your wheels until you tip back into it and back on your wheels. And I've used it quite a lot. Not just on this, on all sorts of vehicles. Yeah, this is like the scout test I've been doing. Going at the mountain, turning circles, not too bad. It made it round there, which is nice. And to be honest, it does actually feel pretty nice and stable, even going all along up here. Like, it's one of them where it's not the most powerful, but yeah, there is enough there. There's certainly enough for climbing at hills like that and stuff, but when you're flooring it, it's quite a nice pace for this kind of narrow, windy road, whereas, say, the Hummer, if it had 5 or 10 seconds and you were tapping L1 a bit so it does climb up the gears, or the, you know, there is situations where you can be going a bit fast. This one's has kind of got, you know, and I don't mean this to insult the truck or anyone who enjoys it, but it's got a bit of a beginner's pace to it. And again, I don't mean that in a bad way, like, it's pretty nice sometimes just to be able to squeeze down the accelerator and you don't really have to keep letting off or feathering the throttle every 2 seconds. Especially when you're going down weird windy paths like this. I did notice though, that tree that's normally there, that I like see which ones can get through the gap and which can't, they're not there at the minute. And I've noticed a few things in the last couple of days, that on Lake Coved, I've like smashed the ice up in like the sort of normal bit where it's like the biggest bit of ice, and when I refresh the map, or I've even turned the game off, obviously loaded it all back up, everything, and then the ice is still broken, sometimes it's got like those whiter patches of ice that just look like somebody's filled them back in with like the bits that came out. But yeah, I've noticed sort of like maps aren't necessarily refreshing as completely as they were, say, a week ago. I think I got a little bit unlucky there. I think I sort of let go of the throttle and squeezed it back on just as I kind of bounced my front wheel off the rock and started moving backwards a little bit, and yeah, it just went straight to stalling. But if I'm honest, it's not really been an issue. But yeah, made it to the top pretty hassle-free. That was the first attempt as well, which is always nice. It's little things like this though, now we're on the snow test in Northport, it just feels a little bit, again, like it's being over-punished. Because normally here, most vehicles, or the trucks anyway, go through this pretty easily. It's more when you get nearer to those trees that it starts to kind of officially become deep snow, and then it slows most things down anyway. But yeah, this just feels a bit like it's been artificially made to be very slow, just to, I don't know, I suppose eke out the gaming experience, and like you can up the difficulty from there. So I get all that, and I'm not knocking it. I understand the concept of like why they've limited some things, but yeah, for say long-term gameplay, once you have completed all the game pretty much and you're just messing around, then it'd be nice if you could just, again, like somebody said with the like simulation versus arcade, I don't think, I'd almost say a lot of balancing features in this game are beyond simulation. And again, that's not necessarily bad, I just mean long-term gameplay. Like, you can go and watch a 4x4 online driving through some pretty goddamn deep snow, and it doesn't go 1 mile an hour or anything. I can show you other bits as well later, but yeah, like, I'm not necessarily complaining, it's just, I suppose, if mods were there as an option. Well, I wouldn't even say it necessarily needs more power, it just needs, like, these artificial speed restrictions when you're on certain terrains just up in a little bit. Like I say, sometimes it almost feels like it goes beyond simulation, and it's just, yeah, a bit, it almost then feels unrealistic on like the opposite end of the scale. Or at least, let's be honest, a bit boring. Like, who would want to go 1 mile an hour like that through this? I ended up cutting the rest out because I just winched the trees in front, pulled myself through that tree, and then there was the bush, and I think there was another tree, and then yeah, slowly drove off the snow. But that was it. There's nothing exciting about it really when it comes to more difficult terrain. Yeah, nearly went there, but we got it. It did climb up there though, fairly hassle-free. It was probably slightly my fault. I let it roll a bit too far on the edge of there, but yeah, caught it with a winch. It's not the only truck I've done that for, so wouldn't say it's too bad. Managed to get its way down there as well. I'd say the clearance between the front bumper and the wheels are like not too bad. So yeah, I'm not saying like it should go this fast through snow or anything. I just think it should be a little bit faster than it is. So the engine took a pretty big hit then. And maybe it's just the chassis length. It really didn't like climbing up here. I can kind of bump the nose up, but it takes most of my speed and momentum out of it as it does it. But just like, say the wheelbase, the rear tyres are just trying to scoot up that pipe as the front's trying to go up the wall, and it's just, yeah, it's trying to do both at once. If it was a bit longer or a bit shorter, it might. But anyway, like I say, that's neither here nor there. It's just this very specific situation, I suppose. But it is what it is. Stuck a winch on the tree from the back, so it just kind of forces the front to jump over the wall, and we're good to go. As for the trees though, to be honest, I believe I even winched through like the first bit in the end, because it was just stopped dead, and then I had to winch a bit more because, as you'll see in a few seconds, there's a branch that's clearly hanging on pretty well, because it did that even like really nearly flipped me over like onto my roof, but it didn't quite. I'm not sure what it caught on. I don't know if it caught on the fog lights or what, but yeah, I wasn't getting through there. I'm towing this trailer because, as I said before, I just really can't stand them Scout cargo trailers. The wheels are just too small. Well, that's one of the problems, but I mean, it's okay on a flat road, but as soon as you get to anything other than that, it's they start becoming a pain in the arse. The turning circle's decent though. Obviously it's a Scout, so it was never really going to struggle there. Got a little bit squirrely. One thing I would say though is having this trailer on like a winch, because there is a little bit of winch between, like, rather than this thing just being connected directly to my tow bar. As I kind of go round a corner, if I slow down a bit, it's not instantly pushing that back end round like trying to make me jackknife. And yeah, I mean, we're going along pretty nicely. If I just had to move trailers like down a road and that, I wouldn't mind doing this. I wouldn't do it every time, but that was a decent enough speed. I'd be happy enough. So that's why I just left like the more of the road bit in, because going along here I cut some bits out. I mean, it's not like I'd realistically be doing too much like cargo travelling across mud anyway, but yeah, as you can see, it's just not having it. I was there for obviously a lot longer than you see there. What I did in the end was disconnect the winch, drive forward, and just kept grabbing it, pulling it towards me. That's what she said. And in the end I gave up. Gave up with the trailer. It's not that I couldn't, I could have just kept winching forward slowly, but I kind of decided halfway through, what's the point? It's a Scout, so I'll just see how it gets across here. And it's not too bad. You see there though, where I was in low, and then I put it in auto, and I'd say it was as fast, if not a tiny bit faster. And maybe the snow, well, obviously the SnowRunner would have 3 low range options, but it's just the speed you lose in the auto and the high that, or maybe not the high so much on this one. On trucks it's certainly the case, but yeah, I just don't really think it's worth the sacrifice. Like, most places that I'd have to head to if I was going to go in a Scout, I'd try and find, or I'd use the roadway to get like as near as I can, and then it's just a little bit of off-roading at the end, I suppose. Trailer park was coming along pretty nicely though. Going through the water, not too bad. Once I get to there where it's kind of officially turns to deep water, and it slows most things down, but you see what I mean though, this does feel a little bit artificially hindered. Not too bad. I thought, oh, now it's looking alright, but then it stopped, dropped itself back to first. And if I put it in high now, I'd be going about the speed I am now, if that, so I'd say there's more potential for gain just leaving it in auto at that point. Now, I apologise because it does glitch here, but it's only going through those rocks. Because it's a scout, obviously it isn't even close to being like an issue or anything, so if it was a truck I definitely would go back, but yeah, I mean, it's a scout, it's pretty goddamn narrow, so it was never going to be an issue anyway. I mean, once I get to these snow tracks where you can kind of see a bit of road, it takes a little while, a couple of taps of L1 trying to get it to... That's the thing, and it's not just exclusive to this truck, it's just the freeway gearbox, like I say, and I'd say the SnowRunner as well, but yeah, they don't like getting out of first unless you give them a bit of encouragement, or they've got enough room to eventually build up the speed and start changing gears. It was very slow through that snow, where it kind of stops being a road and then it cuts back to this. Little bit of interior gameplay, the trees, the horizon and everything, it's pretty nice. I'd say it's just below like the point you'd want it to be, so it's not too bad. I suppose you could use the bottom left corner of the window, but I've gone and bought a horn, so that's blocking some of that. As for the mirrors, yeah, they're just not very tall. They're not like the big, taller truck mirrors, which is fair enough, but like I said, they just feel a little bit angled down. Funnily enough, when I used to have the M5, every time you put it in reverse, its mirrors would like change angle, because it was supposed to be like if you're parallel parking next to a curb, but it was a pain in the eye. I eventually figured out how to turn them off, like, so they don't do that. But yeah, reversing at first in that thing, it just reminds me where I look at these and it's like, okay, I can see the floor, but I don't really need to see the floor. I need to see, or I'd want to see, what's behind me. I suppose you've got the rear view mirror for that, or obviously I can just look outside. But yeah, it's just a bit of a slow crawl. I mean, it's not the end of the world. At least it actually does make it through, so it's not like a full-on complaint or anything, but I do sort of feel like if balancing wasn't an issue, this would be, I don't know, allowed to be free a bit more. So once you get up like midway through the gearbox, yeah, it's not too bad. It's just getting it to there. And at this point, even though it's going to be slower than most trucks, I suppose I'd be like, as long as it can make it to the other end, that's more what I'll be looking for. I suppose I cheated there with the winch, but again, though, I kind of do in the scout gameplay and the reviews, because having a winch that can reach pretty bloody far is kind of part of the point, as much as the winches are pretty expensive. I mean, you've only got to buy one, say, for the scouts, and you can pretty much just jump them from each vehicle, so you don't have to buy like 10 winches or anything. I think I've got 10 loafs at the minute, so I've got like 200 grand odd nearly, I think, in winches on them. But they're all about 35 to 40 grand, so I've got 350, 400 grand just in loafs. Still got plenty to go as well. So getting across here did pretty nicely. Not really any complaints. I'd certainly, like, if I had to, if I knew I had to cut across there, if that was like some shortcut back to the garage or whatever, then yeah, I'd chance it again in this. And so you're not too bad on the snow roads, but then you get somewhere like, well, like, we've not even hit that tree yet, but and I'm going to pretty much cut most of it out because it don't get any better than that. Got like a tiny bit of speed then, but then we hit like, I don't know, some that bush just popped out. Yeah, again, use my winch. But I could easily reach the trees on the other side of that road now, so that's just what I always naturally do. If I ever am in a scout and I get to a situation like this, I don't even kind of slowly struggle anymore. It's just fling a winch out to the furthest thing you can reach, hoover it in, and repeat. And yeah, generally speaking, I wouldn't go somewhere if there was too much of this kind of off-roading on the way. You see though, I reached that tree, and yeah, that's part of the reason again why having, say, a SnowRunner gearbox that has the 3 low ranges. Low, nothing against it, but it's so slow that I can winch to something and go faster than that. Medium low I've got anyway, and high low, yeah. Not saying, like, I'm not going to lie, if I could just add high low to this I probably would, but generally speaking I find auto pretty similar anyway. So next up, the old mountain test. You see, it starts to get shallower snow here, and then it's not quite as restricted and held back. And the nice thing is, it is pretty planted. Yeah. Got a bit unlucky there, but rolled over. Started shitting its pants. So, we're back. To be honest, I recovered it in the end because I couldn't even remember what I did through the mud the first time, and I wasn't even sure if I did it like properly or anything, or if I even... Yeah, so I was just like, do you know what, I'll just recover and I'll do it again. See, once you clip those bits of deep snow though, it's just back to this, but other than that, up on these mountain tops it's more shallow snow than deep, especially I kind of know the routes now that I take and stuff, and yeah, I can mostly avoid it, but that's just an example of what it's like, really. And not that I'm going to build up a lot of top speed because I'm in the low range with the diffs on. But for as slow as it is, I still do like that it gets generally most places that you want it to get, even if it's not very fast. As for the tipping test, I mean, I had to scoot over to the left a bit more just to get it to actually go. And it's like, is it going to land on its wheels or not? That's close. Going for a long one. As you can see, that I would say, in fairness, I'd say the advantage is with landing back on your wheels. Obviously, with anything, you can, like, if you've not got enough momentum to it, you're going to end up on your roof or whatever. But overall, out of like the 4 times I managed to start my engine, then it was kind of, yeah, it seemed like it wanted to settle on its wheels more than anything else. A lot of trucks don't like that bit there where I'm scooting to the left. They just, a lot of stuff gets to that point and it just won't quite get over. But started scooting over to the left. It did look like the front right, I believe, was cocking up a little bit, like it was, yeah, it was thinking about it, but it didn't roll. And slowly but surely, we made it up. Yeah, that's definitely what she said. Like an innuendo minefield trying to review one of these trucks. So I got to here, I mean there, cocks a wheel again, and it's off. I was going to say, can I hear an engine running in the background? It's the GMC over there, I drove it through the trees earlier. Yeah, rolled down though, landed back on my wheels, so again, I mean, I've rolled it quite a lot in the last couple of days. And more often than not, it does land on its wheels, so it's certainly on the right end of the scale as far as that goes. And I don't know why, when I travelled to Quarry from Zimnegorsk, the loaf, he's a ghost loaf. And then look, it's just, obviously this is like something that's changed very recently. I feel like they've done some kind of stealth update in the last couple of days or something that, if I'm honest, it'd be nice if they had a page on the game, whether you just go into that codex bit or whatever, that just said the latest update things are doing, because I'm sure there is somewhere, you know, patch notes and all sorts of stuff, but it can't be that hard just to add, you know, a couple of little bullet points of info, like what they've attempted to change. I assume they've tried to do something if it's now acting like... Basically, when I was in the CK, the loaf was being a ghost, and then when I switched to the loaf, this was doing it, whereas the other day, not too long ago, I actually drove a truck and trailer through, like, that gateway, and they all stayed on the trailer. So I drove down here, tried a bit of recycling, went and grabbed this trailer. Taking lessons from the loaf. Tried to wear it like a hat, but it wants to be a loaf, but it's not. And yeah, I still think it's pulling this trailer better than that stupid bloody scout trailer thing. I have got one round here somewhere, that scout trailer, but sod that. See, it's funny though, when I was like just driving forward and trying to pull it over that rock, it was having none of it. But then release the winch, drive forward, attach the winch, hoover the winch in, and then it does get over it. And yeah, again, I'm going to skip ahead because most of this is just incredibly slow. I didn't grab any... I actually did... I brought the Navistar and put some concrete slabs in it. There's not a goddamn chance in hell, so I was like, I'll just remove them. Go back to an empty trailer. Got the loaf and the Navistar there just in case, but to be fair, it didn't roll. It's not going to try as easy to roll because there's no slabs in the trailer and the trailer's not attached to me, so it's not going to try and take me with it or anything. And long story short, it started climbing up, got to places like that, and then once I started jiggling the steering round, it was a bit of sort of pot luck, if I'm honest. It was kind of every now and then it'd dig in and grip, and then there was patches where it was just sitting there wheel spinning. So it certainly wasn't the most urgent of trucks, and I wouldn't say the best at doing this. It was just to give some relative idea of what it's like at pulling one of these up here. I've done it, I think, in the Cairn Marshall and the Loaf. I believe they both got up better than this one did. And again, I edit most of it out, but essentially what I did, disconnect the winch, and because I drove up after that, it kind of locked the physics in place halfway up the second hill. I drove to the top, grabbed it with a winch, and yeah, that seems to be a bit of a technique for this thing. It says in the description for this that it's like capable of towing loads or something. It's like, meh, I don't know. I kind of feel like that might have been written before this maybe had a few balancing adjustments. Not in its favour. So again, really, it's just pretty slow, but it's still getting there just. And once I get to about here, it's just having none of it. So again, I drove it. This was just like, I suppose, things that I've noticed helped me. There was rocks up there, so I drove up. I tried to catch the back wheel on it, but I missed it, so just started steering over that way. And once the front wheel's hooked on that rock, I'm now staying put. The trailer's got to come with me, and I also know in a minute I'll disconnect the winch. Even if it rolls back a little bit, the physics are going to lock it in place. Which that's kind of like what I like doing when I'm testing all bits and bobs out. I like to kind of use the game mechanics against themselves. So say like if I tip on the side and I'm using the high range to flick mud out the way, or yeah, I don't like the locking physics that you'll see why coming up very shortly. But if it's going to happen, then I'll use it to my advantage. Or how I've said when I rescue things with a loaf, using a truck as a wedge, the loaf can flip practically anything because it's not usually going to push the truck out of the way, whereas if you used a big truck and then another truck as a wedge, it quite often, just with the mechanics of the game, it'll push the truck out of the way rather than dig in. So anyway, went to grab the loaf, almost running out of fuel, and look at it, the trailer just lets go. I was like, oh crap. It got me. Loaf's not impressed. Have to do some kind of gymnastic backflip. Assert his dominance. Let that trailer know. He's a goddamn professional. And he doesn't go down like that. I mean, I just left this in to show you that... I don't know, but does this not sound like it's a bit more urgent and... there's a bit more, yeah... a little bit more excitement going on, like especially I know the CK was in low range when I was driving up here, but it's not got diffs and everything always on, so whereas this has, it's this goddamn horse of a vehicle. But yeah, I mean, when you have got a goddamn professional, you can get trailers up, up some steep quarry hills. I was originally just going to drive up and put some fuel in the CK, but then the trailer tried to give me some lip. So, yeah. Basically, as I winched in there, it was a bad time to do it because my wheels were basically in that little patch of boggy mud. It only took me like 15-20 seconds just steering to the right and flooring it, but yeah. Preferably, don't try and hoover the winch in when you sat on the boggy mud. But, I mean, look at it, the loaf's just more capable. Having the time of its life. Give this some fuel and we're off. Now, I didn't bother bringing the trailer with me. That was kind of part of the reason that I already know there's a bit of mud down here, and I know how much this thing slows down anyway. And at that point, I wouldn't be towing a trailer, it just happened to be rolling down a hill behind me, so... yeah, but as for jumping off here, this is more what I wanted to know myself. And to its credit, it landed on its wheel. It even looked like it went a bit iffy off the jump, but it landed down and, yeah, made it back to its wheels. I kind of made it roll on purpose there, but again, it's yeah, sigh of relief when you roll something in the middle of nowhere where there's no garage on that map particularly, and then you get back to your wheels. See where I mean here? Like, it shouldn't be that punished. That mud is like an inch deep, and this thing's got raised suspension, a V8 in it or whatever, massive tyres with chains on, and it goes 1 mile an hour in shallow mud, and it's... yeah, I think that's just over the top. And funny enough, and I've said this before, sometimes no suspension is the best suspension, and especially when it's on the ice. See those patches there that aren't properly filling back in? And I wasn't sure if it was because this trailer was nearby, so, I mean, he's definitely had some loaf training. But yeah, move that trailer further back just because I wasn't sure if that was playing a part in why the ice isn't fixing itself properly. And I brought a Voron AE out. I basically fixed the suspension, but as you could see, with no suspension, yeah, I don't know. I think it behaved pretty well on the ice, but then I wanted to know, so I fixed the suspension. And to its credit, it's pretty decent. Regardless, considering it's got the chain tyres on, and that's where I now know for a pretty damn certain that this isn't a heavy vehicle at all. Well, I know it's not a heavy vehicle, but I mean even for a Scout, because it's rarely breaking through. I drove over that patch that I'd already drove over, and eventually I managed to get it to crack, and then the back finally went down, and now it's like the left was still tipping up there. Now I knew, like, that's it. Game over. I gave it another 10 seconds of flooring it, but yeah, usually once you've dropped in, that's it. So I used the Voron to get it out, but then I wanted to see if this could get the Voron out. And I know it was only 2 wheels in there, but still, I was, yeah, reasonably happy with that. It helped claw the nose back onto the unbreakable ice. And then I had a little drive in the CK, I rolled it, and then I fancied ramming it with the AE. And then that stupid goddamn ice ruined it. And I was like, well, okay. Yeah. Attempt number 2. Damn. That's how you flip a CK back. And I was like, what? Engine broken? What the hell did I do? I wasn't even driving it. I was driving that thing. See? It's fucked. That's how you know I was driving it. I jumped off here. I mean, it could barely even make it off here, so I just happened to be tipping on the side that was drowning the, like the snorkel. I made it with like a tiny little bit of engine health, but obviously there's no way I'm clawing out of that. I just wanted to see how easy it was to drag back out of there. If I'm honest, this is not the most scientific part, but I've tried pulling quite a few things out of there, and yeah, they get hooked on, like, you see that ice that just flicked up? That's why I drove forward and then stuck the winch on when I already had some pretty good momentum, because I knew I was glitching into some ice. Yep, things are looking good. But you'll see these couple of bits coming up in a second that are just a pretty good demonstration of what the ice is doing at the minute, and I think it has got even worse recently. I mean, look at that, 2 bits of ice, locks into my wheel, pretty much immediately makes me start stalling in high range. And this is what happens when you break through the breakable stuff. It's just you can't see this going on under the water and ice, but... And this is 20 seconds later. Pretty much the exact same thing again. And yeah, why ever it's doing that, they need to tone that down, stop it doing it. They are a bit slow on bugs on this game. I've not had every bug. I mean, people tell me about bugs they've had. I don't have every bug, so I can't speak for experiences I've not had, but the bugs I have found, I think they're way too... almost slow to the point where it's like, is that a bug, or is that their idea of balancing? Like, I'm not too sure myself, to be honest. As you can see there, I drove it out into the water. It basically starts to float, but to the point where it just lifts basically the whole truck up, and it can't drive anywhere, so I had to bring a dolphin in a loaf. I mean, loaf's goddamn professional. He ain't done yet. To be honest, as I was watching this back, I was like, well, did I need to do the winch or not? I don't honestly know, but you'll be surprised how how low this can go before it it basically sort of floats from like the roof end, so when you tip sideways, it's bloody good in the water for that. Got here, like, ta-da! I was like, oh yeah, shit. I was supposed to bring repairs. Well, scrap that idea then. Attempt number 1 at bringing a van repair body. About now, I was like, oh yeah, I was supposed to bring a van repair body. I did fail again, but the slippery flying dolphin test is an important one. Nailed it. Oh yeah, look at him rolled over. Done. No cuddling. Like, night. See you in the morning. Job's a good one. There's a loaf. Keeping an eye on the situation. Yeah, I mean, it's not nuts for like the damage. The engine does seem to take hits pretty easily, if I'm honest. I mean, what's the engine got? 100 health. So, just for my own curiosity, I brought the dolphin and did that with the CK. I've honestly done that 40 times with the dolphin and loaf. I don't think the loaf has ever not landed on its wheels. Touch wood. This thing, first time, landed on its side. The loaf, look at him, didn't even have to move. Just such a goddamn professional. It wasn't even done there. And look at him, he digs deep. Flipping a dolphin with a van body ain't easy either. But just a goddamn horse of a vehicle. Get yourself a loaf. Like I said, I know every video inevitably turns into a loaf review, but there's a reason. This is a goddamn horse of a vehicle. So, plan B for drowning this thing, or doing something with it. Stick a winch the dolphin. And funnily enough, this kind of like, I wouldn't say sidetrack, it's probably quite a handy thing to know maybe, but once I got the winch on the dolphin, as you can see, the dolphin's drowning, the engine's getting knackered. Engine stalled, so the dolphin engine now is completely done. But because I've got a winch to it, and I'm now hoovering the winch in, the mechanic of it at the minute, which is weird because I I showed you out of the water the other day, or yesterday or whatever, that it stops driving when you pull the winch in, or I don't know. It's a bit mad, to be honest. It's like, yeah, trying to get consistency out of it is a bit iffy. But it's making the dolphin drive completely underwater, and it's pushing me along. I'm nowhere near touching the floor. However deep this water is, you can't even see any of the dolphin, including the van repair body, sticking out the water, so it's definitely a hell of a lot deeper than the CK-1500's going to go. But yeah, again, using the game mechanics against itself. I mean, even the dolphin's tiptoeing now. You see, it's been loaf trained. Knows how to get the job done. It was looking a bit sketchy, a bit iffy at one point. I was like, oh, please don't get stuck now. But we held in there. We kept going. I just found it funny that it was, obviously I'm still using the winch now. You just seen it say engine broken. And about now, when I get out of the water, it's like it stops doing that. So I drive forward, stick the winch back on. And I know it's not like a completely even test, but you remember 10-20 minutes ago whatever, when I was trying to pull that trailer through the Northport cut through, it wasn't pulling it in the mud or anything, yet now it's pulling a fully loaded dolphin with a broken engine out of some pretty deep water up a hill. So who knows.
And dying in your beds many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom?
Oh, well, I tried. My bad, Scotland. Didn't have a kilt on, that was the problem. That's the source of their power. Thought for a second, like, well, is it gonna get back? No. Might be partially loaf trained, but it ain't a loaf. So I had a quick mess around, ended up rolling both of them. So anyway, in conclusion, to be honest, despite the fact that it is pretty slow on some of the meatier terrains, honestly, in a way I quite like it. It's not too bad, especially along the roads and stuff, where it's like, its top end speed is not so fast where it starts drifting and just completely losing traction and all the rest of it, which I do find quite fun. But you know what I mean, if you just want to head somewhere, you don't have to keep feathering the throttle. It just maintains quite a nice pace, really. On the ice roads in Northport, it was pretty nice going down there when I did the rally stage videos, and yeah, like I said, it just stuck to the path that I wanted to go on really quite well. I mean, fully upgraded, it's about 44 grand there, which is, I'd say, slightly high, but I have got a lot of things like the front and rear bumper, fog lights, horns, all sorts of stuff on it, so it'd probably be about 40. It's about 11.5 stock, which again is pretty cheap, but you get it free anyway. So yeah, if you've got the spare money, or if you sold it originally, like if you've got the upgrades now, I'd stick them on it, and it's pretty nice. Even I've been driving it on Lake Coved, and again, heavy snow and that, no, but just for checking the place out, it's been alright. So yeah, anyway, that's about it for today. I hope that helps. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon.